Today's video is all about my top 10 favorite resin tools that I use every time I create a resin project in the studio. Welcome back to the studio. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about the tools and supplies that I use, not only on YouTube, but on my Instagram channel. So I thought the best way to go about this is to create a video that I can refer to or refer you guys to when you ask me these questions. These are the things that I have surrounding me before I begin a pour. Now, I'm not gonna go into the types of resins or pigments and that sort of thing because I'm gonna save that for another video. It's a whole nother beast in itself. And I'm not only gonna just show you what I'm using, but I'm gonna tell you why I'm choosing these things and what they're for. And to make it extra easy for you to find these tools, I'm going to create a special category in my Amazon shop called Top 10 Resin Tools so that you can find these all in one place. So let's get started. Number one, my respirator. Now, when I first started working with resin, I didn't wear a respirator. I researched my resins and I got resins that were no VOC or low VOC, thinking that I would be okay. But it's just simply not the case for me. Even though a resin may claim to be low or no VOC, it still, when you heat it up, can emit a fume and a smell. And I am super sensitive to smells. I actually have a health condition that causes my body to overreact. I start just having all kinds of problems. So for me, it just wasn't gonna work, even if my resin was low or no VOC. I highly recommend when working with resins to wear a respirator. The respirator that I use is called Breathe Buddy, and I ordered it on Amazon. It was fairly reasonable and it's so comfortable. And you can tighten the straps. It fits your face perfectly. It's one size. And they've since changed the filters on them so they look a little different than mine. And they even come with a handy pair of glasses. How do you make a respirator mask look cute? Number two is gloves. You don't ever want to work with resin without a pair of gloves on. It is a sticky mess and you don't want to get it on your skin. I get gloves that are latex free and powder free. So the latex free is just a preference. Some people are allergic to latex, but don't get gloves with powder in them. I know it can get hot and sweaty and sticky in the resin studio, but you don't want that powder coming off your gloves and getting into your resin work and messing your whole project up. And don't forget to tie your hair up if you've got long hair like me, or put a hat on, because yes, the resin will find its way into your hair, and I've had a haircut to prove it. Moving on to number three, my heat gun. Now, what I love about this heat gun is that it has 2 speeds and it has a variable temperature dial on the back. It also comes with a few different tips. It comes with a flat tip, a round tip, and a smaller funnel tip. So that depending on your project, you've got a variety of options there. And before I go on and explain what I use my heat gun for, I'm gonna show you my tool number 4. And that would be my culinary torch. The culinary torches just take these little cans of butane and they have a little feed on the top. You just turn them over, follow the directions, and fill it up, and they last a really long time. And the reason I wanted to talk about these 2 tools together is because they each serve similar purposes and specific purposes. So my heat gun is great for moving my resin around on the board while heating it up. My torch isn't great for moving resin around, because if I sit there with that torch in one spot, I'll scorch my resin. So torches are really great for popping air bubbles in your resin before you're ready to cure. They're also great for creating a little bit of an intense heat source that will create some of that cell and lacing effect like you'll see in my seascape behind me. Now, with a heat gun, you can do the same thing. It's just gonna move a lot more. And you don't always want your resin to move a lot. For instance, if you're making a geode, you may just want to soften the lines. And in that instance, I might just go on my torch and kind of drift it back and forth over the lines of the geode. So these are by my side on every project. The torch I use mostly for popping bubbles and getting in some little pops of action to create some cells. And my heat gun I use for like creating those seascapes behind me, really getting movement and flow in my piece, and also developing the lacing and cell work. And that brings us to number 5. It's time to protect the surface of our table before we begin to pour. And it can be as easy as laying down wax paper. But my number 1 favorite table protection is a craft mat by Lolivefe. They make these amazing craft mats, and the resin and the paint peel right off. They come in all shapes and sizes. I love the way they lay flat on my surface. Now, Lolivefe isn't on Amazon at this point, but they've provided me with a coupon code for you, and I'll make sure to put a link below if you're interested in getting yourself one of these most amazing craft mats. My top 10 tools at number 6 is levels. You want to always be sure to level your table, level the surface you're working on, because resin self-levels. So if your surface is not level, it's gonna flow right off the edge. And I have about 3 or 4 different levels, one of them being a little tiny bubble leveler. I love this thing. It's perfect for when I'm creating my little coasters or my tiles, because I can just plop it down in the center and it'll tell me if that's level. Now for bigger pieces, I'll go to a bigger straight level that has a bubble in the middle and a couple on the side. And then I have my really big level when I'm leveling my table out, or even a bigger canvas or project. So just make sure you level your projects, because you don't want to go to all that work and see your resin running off the edge. Another not so glamorous but very essential tool that I have in the resin studio is number 7, and that would be my mixing cups and sticks. My favorite mixing cup is by TCP. They have everything figured out for you on them. It takes the brain damage out of figuring out how much to pour resin and how much to pour hardener. So you can either use the little ounces on the side. If your resin is a 1-to-1 ratio, they have it all figured out there. You would just pour half resin, half hardener up to the lines that they show you, depending on the amount you want to mix up, and you're good to go. And the same with if your resin is 2-to-1, 3-to-1, etc. This cup's brilliant. And by the way, you can reuse it. So I also use these 1-ounce medicine graduated dispensing cups. They have the marks on them too. So they're great for mixing smaller amounts of resin or mixing pigments into resin where you don't need large quantities. And then my other cup I love to use are my paper Dixie cups, and these are great for mixing larger quantities of pigments in with your resin. And the cups bend so that you can drizzle out the resin perfectly on your board. And as far as mixing up that resin, I just go for my little popsicle sticks and my jumbo popsicle sticks. The big ones I use for mixing my big batches of resin and for smoothing it out on the board. And the little ones I use for mixing my smaller amounts of resin. They're really cheap. You get them in these big boxes and they'll last forever. Let's talk about number 8. You might be surprised that this is one of my favorite things in the resin studio. Alcohol wipes. So what I'll do is I'll keep this next to me, I'll pull one out, I'll wipe off my resiny gloved hands, and then I'll pick up my torch, and then I'll use my torch and I'll wipe my hands off again. You're always touching and dipping those hands in resin, and these alcohol wipes are just great to have on hand. I've also even used them on my projects. If I've accidentally dripped resin where it shouldn't have been, I take an alcohol wipe and I wipe it right off. I love you alcohol wipes. I just want to share one safety tip with you regarding alcohol wipes and heat guns and torches, and that is they aren't friends. Alcohol catches on fire very easily, and we're working with heat guns and torches. So take it from my experience. Keep them very far apart when you're working your project. It will only take you one time of an alcohol wipe bursting into flames for you to realize to always be aware of that situation and always keep them very far away from each other. And on that note, it doesn't hurt to have a fire extinguisher nearby. Moving on to number 9, a very small but very necessary tool that I have next to me during every resin pour, and that would be tweezers. You will not believe the amount of time I spend after I stop recording for you these video tutorials that I am picking dust and hair and whatever else decided to fall into my resin project while I was creating it. So I have this amazing set listed on Amazon that I have. It comes with several tweezers with different tips that makes it really easy to pluck little bits and pieces out of your resin. And while we're on the topic of dust and all the little nasty bits that get into your project, let me give you a tip. Make sure all of your resin surfaces and pieces are covered, and then spritz your whole space down with water. And what that will do is it'll help settle the dust and all of those particles down to the ground, making it less likely that you'll get stuff in your resin. But trust me, you're still gonna need the tweezers. And last but not least, number 10. I discovered this product because I was wanting to get up and move around my project as I was working on it. So I realized, why not put it on a Lazy Susan? So number 10 is a Lazy Susan or turntable. And I have this amazing 16-inch one by OXO. It'll be listed in my Amazon shop. And those Lolivefe craft mats. They have a round one that fits right on top. So now I don't have to try to cut out a perfect circle of wax paper. I can just put that down, my surface is protected, and I get to have fun moving and twirling my art around as I'm working the resin over the board. I know this hasn't been the most exciting of topics, but I'm hoping that knowing the things that I have around me to get started on a resin project will help you determine what you need as you get started in the process of making resin art. And if you have something that I haven't mentioned that you love, love, love to use in your resin studio, leave me a comment below and let me know what that is. Because like most other crafters and artists, I'm a supply addict, and I would love to know if I'm missing out on something. I know this has been a ton of talking Tammy time, and if you made it this far, well, congratulations. I know it was a lot of me on camera, and believe me, I'm feeling more awkward than you are. If this video wasn't enough and you'd like to understand the kind of resins I use and why I use them, the kinds of pigments and glitters and the surfaces that I work on, then let me know in the comments below, and that'll be a good indication if you'd like to see another video talking about the supplies that I use in my actual projects. And now that I've got all my tools out and ready to go, I'm gonna start on another resin project, and I'll catch you guys next time. Until then, happy creating. Start over, start over. Look over here, not there.